Americans seem to be talking about strategic stability, yet at the same time they're talking about the need to deliver strategic defeat to Russia. Our position is that we're open for negotiations, but at the same time, the time for good gestures is past. We're out of good gestures. So, is there going to be no negotiations? We've never given up the idea of negotiations. But, well, no gestures, then no compromises, then. Well, let me try to explain here. When we were doing the negotiations in Turkey, as I've said many times, I can repeat that once again. Moreover, with the negotiators from the other party, we ended up with a fat stack of documents, a draft of a treaty, and an excerpt from that treaty. It's available. It was signed by the leader of the negotiations group on the side of Ukraine, Mr. Arahamia. There is a signed paper in my office. But as Mr. Arahamia himself said in public at a meeting with international journalists, ex-Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Johnson, came and talked them out of finally signing and ultimately observing this treaty. And then they started talking about the need to deliver a battlefield defeat to Russia. Are we ready for negotiations? Yes, we are. We are willing to negotiate. The negotiations should be based not on some wishful thinking after using some substances, but negotiations based on the reality that we have on the ground, as they say. That's one thing. Number two is many times we've been promised lots of things. Non-proliferation of NATO to the east. Next thing we know, they are standing at our borders. We were promised, not going deep into history even, we were promised that the domestic conflict in Ukraine will be solved using peaceful political means. And 3 ministers of foreign affairs came to Kiev, Poland, Germany, and France, and they promised to be guarantors of those agreements. One day later, a state coup took place. We were promised that Minsk agreements will be observed. And then they publicly said they were not going to observe those. They were only winning time to arm the Nazi regime in Ukraine.
Many things were promised to us, so promises are not enough anymore. To start negotiations just because they are running out of ammo would be ridiculous on our side. We are nevertheless ready for a serious conversation, and we are willing to resolve all the conflicts, especially this particular conflict, by peaceful means. But we must understand clearly for ourselves that this should not be a pause that the enemy will use to rearm itself. It should be a serious conversation with security guarantees for the Russian Federation. And we know of the options. We know of the carrots they want to show us to convince us that the moment has come. Once again, we are willing to resolve all the conflicts, all the arguments in this particular conflict by peaceful means. That's what we want. We are ready for this. But this should be a serious conversation with ensuring security for the warring sides. Well, and first of all, we are interested in the security of the Russian Federation. That's where we stand. I